I don't think anyone expected me to actually sign the divorce papers. After I signed, I started packing my things. It wasn't much, just the essentials: my ID, bank cards, a few changes of clothes, and our marriage certificate. My 24-inch suitcase was hardly full. Candy sat poised on the sofa, hearing the sounds of my packing. She turned her head to look at me. All packed. Yeah, you can have the housekeeper throw the rest out. Her eyes were perfectly calm as she lifted her coffee and took a sip. The mandatory 1-month cooling-off period. I finished her sentence for her smoothly. I'll be there on time. The coffee cup made a sharp clink as she set it down on the table. A flicker of anger surfaced in her eyes. Suit yourself. Over the years, Candy had become an expert at hiding her emotions, but I could still clearly sense her displeasure. I suppose I understood why. After all, I was the one who had finally pushed for the signature. I had first seen that divorce agreement 6 years ago. All this time, I had been waiting for the day she would finally bring it up. I never imagined that I would be the one to do it in the end. I gave a slight nod and started rolling my suitcase toward the door. So, you're really leaving? I looked up to see Jasmine leaning against the second-floor railing, a smirk playing on her lips. I paused for a moment, then looked away and kept walking. The second you walk out that door, you're not my father anymore. The teenager's voice was casual, but her words sent a sharp jolt through my heart. I tightened my grip on the suitcase handle. Okay, I said. I didn't leave Seattle. Life isn't a novel. After all, my entire world was in this city, and leaving wasn't an option. I checked into a hotel for the time being, with no time to wallow in self-pity, and immediately started reaching out to my old supervisor from the airline. Before I became a stay-at-home dad, I was one of the youngest and most promising captains in the industry. I hadn't been in a cockpit for nearly a decade, so I wasn't holding out much hope. To my surprise, I got a call for an interview less than a day later. Thanks to my disciplined lifestyle, I was still in excellent physical condition. Maybe my old flight record was just too impressive to ignore because they decided to give me a shot. I would have to go through retraining and pass all the certifications to be officially hired. The moment I got my hands on the controls again, the memories came flooding back. After 6 months of intensive training, I made the cut. Once I was officially on the roster, I moved into the company-provided housing. I was in the middle of unpacking when there was a knock on the door. Long time no see. What? You don't recognize me anymore. The woman at the door was in uniform, a wide smile on her face. I heard you were back and had to come see for myself. How are you settling in? I was taken aback by how much Haley had changed, but I nodded and asked, Are you now, eh? She did a little spin. The protege you trained didn't let you down, did she? Haley chattered away, filling me in on everything that had happened in her career over the years. Then, a small voice interrupted. Mommy. A little girl stood there rubbing her eyes, looking like she had just woken up from a nap. Haley gently scooped her up and soothed her for a moment. Chloe, come on. Say hi to Mr. Sonny. The little girl shyly mumbled a soft hello. Seeing her like that sent me into a daze. Jasmine used to be just like that when she was little, especially clingy right after waking up. That adorable, sleepy-eyed look just melted my heart. I instinctively reached out to touch Chloe's cheek, but she flinched and buried her face in Haley's shoulder. That snapped me back to reality. I pulled a piece of durian candy from my pocket, unwrapped it, and offered it to Chloe. I don't like durian, she said, wrinkling her nose. It's stinky. I stared at the candy in my hand, and a memory surfaced. It was of the little girl who would always throw a fit for candy after taking her medicine, my daughter, Jasmine. She would always get right up in my face after eating it, deliberately breathing the pungent smell on me until I theatrically pinched my nose, which would send her into fits of goofy laughter. What's your favorite flavor? I'll get you that next time. The candy was starting to melt in my hand, leaving a sticky, uncomfortable residue. Chloe took a real liking to me. I guess it was because I'm a man of my word. The next time I saw her, I pulled out an assortment of fruit candies, and her eyes lit up with pure joy. I had years of experience raising a little girl, and my attentiveness often left Haley speechless. Chloe and I grew closer and closer. The little girl loved telling me all about the funny things that happened at her preschool. I always listened patiently. Sometimes, though, Chloe would get quiet and sad, usually when she mentioned one of her classmates' fathers. Her own dad had passed away in an accident when she was very young, a fact that made my heart ache for her. So when Haley asked if I would dress up as Lotso the strawberry bear for Chloe's birthday surprise, I happily agreed. I showed up at the restaurant sweating inside the thick, plush costume. Chloe squealed with excitement and threw herself into my arms, a grin plastered on her face for the rest of the evening. I sang Happy Birthday with her and helped her blow out the candles. When I finally took off the mascot head, my hair was drenched in sweat. So this is what you've been reduced to. And here I thought you were going to do something impressive. In a city as big as Seattle, I never thought we'd run into each other by chance. Jasmine was dressed impeccably, like a porcelain doll, if it weren't for the sneer that marred her perfect features. I remained silent, my face a blank mask. Don't you talk to him like that. You're mean. Chloe suddenly slid off her chair and toddled over to stand in front of Jasmine. I'll say whatever I want. What are you going to do about it? Jasmine's expression was cruel. Chloe's eyes welled up with angry tears. It took me a second to react, but I quickly walked over and scooped Chloe into my arms. The little girl's tears started falling as she clung to my neck, hurt and confused. I softened my voice, patting her back and gently trying to soothe her. I pulled out a fruit candy. How about a watermelon one? Chloe's sobs slowly subsided into hiccups as she nodded her little head. Sonny. I looked up to see Candy standing beside Jasmine. I just grunted in acknowledgement and looked away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jasmine's hands clenched into tight fists at her sides. Candy, long time no see, Haley said, breaking the silence. Are you celebrating a birthday? Yes, it's my daughter's birthday today. I felt a pair of eyes linger on me for a few seconds. Have you forgotten that today is Jasmine's birthday too? Candy directed the question at me. I looked up, a bit confused, and saw Holden coming out of the restaurant, clearly looking for them. I gestured towards him. Aren't you two celebrating with him? I didn't understand why they were still standing there when they had clearly seen Holden. We stood in a silent standoff for another moment before Candy finally grabbed Jasmine's arm and left. Chloe peeked out from my arms, her voice still a little hoarse. Sonny, does that mean girl your daughter? I shook my head. No, she's that lady's daughter. A huge smile spread across Chloe's face, and she grabbed my hand excitedly. Sonny, can you be my daddy then? Chloe, Haley said in a warning tone. Chloe's lip quivered as if she was about to cry. Having lost her father so young, the little girl desperately wanted a dad in her life. I ruffled her hair gently. How about I be your godfather, Chloe? Chloe hugged my arm and refused to let go, calling out sweetly, Daddy. I answered her, and her face lit up with a smile that made her eyes curve into crescents. After all the emotional ups and downs, the little girl's energy was completely spent, and she fell fast asleep in my arms. As I stood by the curb waiting for a cab, I saw Candy and Jasmine get into Holden's car. The car window was halfway down, and I could feel an intense gaze fixed on me. I didn't care who it was from or what it meant. I just shielded Chloe as we got into our cab. I had just gotten out of the shower when my phone rang. It was Candy. The silence on the line stretched on for so long that I started to think it was a pocket dial. Just as I was about to hang up, she spoke. Jasmine is in a really bad mood today. Her opening line completely threw me off. Was she upset because she saw me? I thought for a moment before replying. Today was a coincidence. Given our separate lives, I don't think we're likely to run into each other again. I could hear the wind on her end of the line, and Candy's voice grew sharp. Sonny, are you playing dumb with me? I was getting more and more confused by what she was saying. I pressed my lips together and said nothing. It's your daughter's birthday. Aren't you going to do anything? For more than a decade, I had poured every ounce of my love into Jasmine. I treated every one of her birthdays as a major event, always coming up with new ways to make her happy. When she was little, her birthday wish was always the same, for Daddy to be with me forever. But all of that came to an end on her 10th birthday. I waited up for her at home until after midnight. That's when I saw the videos on a mutual friend's Facebook feed. Jasmine, her eyes sparkling, handed the first slice of cake to Holden. Uncle Holden, she said, will you celebrate my birthday with me every year from now on? After Holden agreed, she threw her arms around him in delight. Of course, that wasn't the only video. In another one, someone asked her a question. Who do you like more, your dad or Uncle Holden? Jasmine's answer was quick. Uncle Holden is so cool and successful. I admire him the most. From that day on, I became the father she never mentioned. After that, Jasmine spent every one of her birthdays with Holden. So I really didn't understand why they were suddenly demanding some kind of gesture from me now. Happy birthday to her, I said, not holding back a simple well-wish. I would have said that much to a complete stranger. Another long silence followed. This time, Candy was the one who hung up, leaving me with the dial tone. I didn't think much of that little incident. That is, until I got another late-night call from Candy a while later. I had just gotten home from a long flight and was trying to catch up on sleep, so I was irritable when the phone woke me. Groggy with sleep, I didn't even check the caller ID. Jasmine's broken out in hives. The nanny said you'd know what to do, Candy said, her voice frantic. The panic in her tone managed to clear some of the fog from my brain. She has sensitive skin. She gets flare-ups when the seasons change. There's cream for it in the medicine cabinet. I heard the sound of her rummaging frantically on the other end. Found it. Good. Make sure the room is well ventilated, I added. Just before hanging up, I remembered something else. There's a notebook in her nightstand with all of her medical information and other things to watch out for. You should read it when you have a chance. That way, you won't have to call me for these things anymore. What are you trying to say? I rubbed my throbbing temples. We're divorced, Candy. I have my own life now, and Jasmine isn't my responsibility anymore. These calls are a disruption. You can hire a full-time nanny or take care of her yourself, but either way, you need to stop bothering me with it. Besides, I'm not a doctor. When she's sick, you should be calling a professional, not me. Without waiting for a reply, I hung up. The wave of exhaustion was too much to fight, and I fell back into a deep sleep. But it was a restless night, filled with dreams. I had a rare dream about the first time I met Candy, more than a decade ago. It was the most harrowing day of my entire flying career. Severe turbulence was tossing the plane around like a toy, and the cockpit windshield had cracked. I could hear the terrified screams of the passengers in the cabin. All I could do was fight the controls, trying to keep the aircraft level. The violent shaking went on for what felt like an eternity. We finally managed to make an emergency landing at a nearby airport. Candy had been in the cabin, crying for a long time. Her young, innocent face was a mask of terror and despair. I woke up to the first light of dawn. Haley was on an international flight, so Chloe was staying with me. I took her to the amusement park. The little girl was having the time of her life, and I couldn't stop taking pictures of her with my phone. Suddenly, a call came through on my phone. It was Jasmine's homeroom teacher. Hello. Am I speaking with Jasmine's father? Hello, what can I do for you? Well, Jasmine has gotten into a bit of a conflict with another student. Would you be able to come down to the school? I paused. Ma'am, Jasmine's mother and I are divorced. She is Jasmine's legal guardian, so you'll need to call her. The teacher sounded stressed. Mr. Davis, we've been trying, but we can't get through to her mother's phone, so... It was the middle of a workday. If Candy wasn't answering, couldn't they reach her assistant? I didn't ask that out loud, but I thought about it. I'm not her legal guardian anymore. I really can't help you. Daddy, I want to ride that one, Chloe said, pointing at the carousel. Her voice pulled my attention away, and I didn't realize that someone else had taken the phone on the other end. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm busy right now, and I really can't get involved in Jasmine's school issues. The response was a clattering sound, as if the phone had been dropped. Then I heard the teacher's frantic voice in the background. Jasmine, wait. Jasmine, don't run off. It dawned on me then that Jasmine had been the one on the phone. I felt a strange mix of shock and, oddly, relief. I had been by her side since she was 4 years old. I took care of her every need, from her meals and clothes to her every mood swing. When she was little, she depended on me, happy to let me plan her days. But as she got older, she developed a mind of her own, with her own opinions and judgments. When she started skipping school to hang out at clubs, I was the one who dragged her home and tried to set her straight. She would just roll her eyes, put on her headphones, and say dismissively, I don't need you to lecture me. Uncle Holden is going to send me to a boarding school in Europe anyway. She grew tired of my rules, and all she wanted was to break free from my control. I once overheard her complaining to a friend, my dad doesn't get anything. He's always trying to control every little thing I do, and I'm so sick of it. I wish Uncle Holden was my dad, she'd said, her voice full of wistful regret. He's fun, and he actually understands me. Even after she saw that I had overheard her, she wasn't the least bit ashamed. Good, you heard me. I wish I had a dad like him. I spent the rest of the day playing with Chloe. When it was time for her to go home, she clung to my hand, not wanting to leave. Daddy, you promised you'd take me out again next time. The little girl was so afraid I'd forget. I knelt down to her level and said seriously, I would never forget a promise to take you out to play. She planted a loud kiss on my cheek. Best daddy in the world. Good night. I was taken aback for a second. Good night. Lately, whenever I was out with Chloe, I'd feel a pair of eyes on me, a presence that was there and not there. My colleagues at work seemed to be gossiping about something. There's this girl who's been hanging around downstairs a lot. Think she has a crush on someone here. Yeah, she's really pretty, but she looks super young. One day, Haley pulled Chloe aside and looked at me. I've seen her a few times now. Your daughter. Downstairs. Is she here for you? I froze for a second, but didn't say anything. Haley pulled back the curtain to peek outside, then turned back to me. You're really not going to go down? This is a long way from your old neighborhood. Aren't you worried about her? I just smiled and shook my head. As it got later, Haley seemed to grow more concerned for Jasmine's safety. Don't worry about it, I said. Her driver is probably waiting for her nearby. Haley looked from me to the window and back again, finally unable to hold it in any longer. Sonny, even though you and Candy are divorced, she's still your daughter. Why are you being so? She hesitated for a moment. Cole. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but I didn't know where to begin. It felt like anything I said would sound like I was just being spiteful. But I wasn't trying to be spiteful. I just genuinely believed that not seeing each other was the best thing for both of us. Chloe started begging for ice cream, so I reluctantly took her downstairs to the convenience store. As we walked, I felt an intense, unignorable stare fixed right on me. I looked up. Jasmine was standing under a tree. The moment our eyes met, she quickly looked down, suddenly seeming nervous. I didn't acknowledge her, just kept walking past with Chloe's hand in mine, pretending not to see her. Dad, the single word, spoken softly, reached my ears. I only faltered for a second before continuing on. But then Jasmine stepped in front of us, blocking our path. She took a deep breath. Dad, don't you bully my daddy. Chloe spread her little arms wide, trying to shield me behind her, her face a mask of solemnity. Seeing my tiny, fierce protector, I couldn't help but smile. Jasmine's expression shifted from stunned to bewildered and then to anger. He's my dad. Chloe shot back, not giving an inch. No, he's not. My daddy said you're not his daughter. Looking at Jasmine's reddening eyes, I sighed. She's right. You got the wrong person. Jasmine was completely frozen in place. Chloe and I had walked a good distance before she finally snapped out of it, running to catch up and grabbing my hand. It was trembling slightly. Dad, are you mad at me? I smiled and shook my head, gently removing her hand from my arm. You really have the wrong person. Tears welled in the teenager's eyes as she shook her head. No, that's not right. I'm your daughter, Jasmine. You must be mad that I didn't study and didn't listen to you. I promise I'll do better. I'll study hard, just... Her words tumbled out in a frantic, incoherent rush. Daddy, let's go, Chloe whispered, hiding behind my legs. She's acting crazy. I bent down, scooped Chloe into my arms, and walked quickly toward the store. Daddy, that girl isn't following us anymore, Chloe whispered in my ear. I glanced back. Jasmine was standing frozen in the same spot, a dazed look on her face. She looked as if she'd been dealt a massive blow. I never expected Candy to come looking for me. When she stepped into my apartment, she scanned the room as if checking for something, and the tense line of her jaw seemed to relax slightly. I offered her a glass of water out of politeness. I didn't say anything, just waited for her to start. Sonny, you're such a block of wood. Can't you ever say something first? Candy said, a rare, almost childish pout on her lips. Her words sent me reeling back in time. For a moment, the room seemed to warp, and the Candy in front of me became younger, more innocent. I saw her wrapping her arms around my waist in our old kitchen, playfully scolding me. You blockhead, can't you ever talk to me first? I remembered standing there, my back rigid, completely forgetting to stir the food on the stove. Okay, I know you're the quiet type, she had said. I guess that means I'll just have to do all the talking for both of us. The beautiful memory faded. Sonny, are you even listening to me? Candy's face was cold again. Yeah, I'm listening. She took a breath. What did you say to Jasmine yesterday? Do you have any idea how much she cried when she got home? I had nothing to hide. I just told her the truth, that I'm not her father anymore. You said what? Candy exploded, her eyes wide with disbelief. In contrast to her fury and disbelief, my expression remained calm. She's your own flesh and blood. How can you disown her? You. She stopped abruptly, as if a thought had just occurred to her. Is this because of what she said at the restaurant? She's just a kid, Sonny. You can't possibly be taking the angry words of a child seriously, can you? Right? Jasmine was just a child. She was just lashing out. I shouldn't have taken it to heart. A parent's love for their child is supposed to be an instinct. An instinct so powerful it makes you forget the pain as soon as the wound has scarred over. But some wounds are too deep, and when new cuts are layered over old scars, they still hurt. My prolonged silence made Candy lose her patience. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. For a while after that, they disappeared from my life completely. Haley eventually heard a little about what had happened from Chloe. See, you upset the poor girl and drove her away. You must regret it now, she teased. I just shook my head. Maybe in the past, I would have been worried. I would have cared, but not anymore. Whether she showed up or not, I truly didn't care. It had nothing to do with me. Maybe my old life had just been too exhausting, because with them gone, I felt an indescribable sense of peace. But I have to admit, it's a small world sometimes. Sonny, I turned toward the voice. It was Candy and Jasmine. My entire flight crew turned to look, their curious gazes shifting between me and them. You guys go on ahead, I told my crew. I'll catch up. As they got closer, Jasmine whispered, Dad. I took off my sunglasses. Can I help you with something? I haven't seen you in your uniform in years, Candy said, looking me up and down. I shifted uncomfortably. If that's all, I have to get going. I had just taken a step when Candy said, Jasmine's been studying really hard lately. That's good to hear. You. She pressed her lips together. You must have seen the teacher's updates in the parent group chat. She's doing all this for you. My expression hardened. She should be studying hard for herself, not for anyone else. And for the record, I left that group chat a long time ago. Kenny stared at me, shocked. Why? Because I'm not her legal guardian. I grabbed my roller bag and started to walk away. Jasmine's eyes were red, and her voice was choked with tears. Dad! A hot tear landed on the back of my hand, and the warmth seemed to seep straight into my heart. When Jasmine was 4, Candy's career was taking off, and I was flying all over the world. We had to leave her with a nanny. I came home late one night after a flight and found Jasmine huddled under her blankets, her small face streaked with tears. Daddy, I'm scared. Those 3 words were all it took. I quit my job and became a stay-at-home father. Little Jasmine was overjoyed to have me home every day. She was so attached to me that for a while, Daddy was the only name she'd answer to, much to Candy's jealousy. But as children grow up, they realize their dad isn't a superhero, just an ordinary man. When she started noticing that all her friends had fathers with impressive, high-powered careers, she started to resent me. Dad, why don't you have a job like other dads? They say guys who stay home and live off their wives are useless freeloaders. I had no response. After Holden came into the picture, she became even more blunt. My mom is so amazing. She should be with someone like Uncle Holden. Standing before me was the daughter I had poured my entire life into. But seeing her tear-streaked face no longer stirred anything inside me. My phone buzzed with a message from my co-pilot. Sorry, I'm running late. Time flew by, and before I knew it, it was the beginning of summer. Hey, how'd your kid do on the SATs? A colleague asked another. Don't even ask. Just barely scraped by. We've been stressing about college applications for days. Hearing them talk, I realized the scores must have been released. My phone had a few messages from distant relatives and old friends, all asking the same thing. I replied to each of them with a simple, I'm not sure, but I found out about Jasmine's score soon enough. I was woken up early the next morning by a commotion outside my apartment door. I'm not a morning person, and I yanked the door open, annoyed. A crowd of reporters was crammed into the hallway, aiming cameras and microphones at me. "Are you Jasmine Davis's father?" They all shouted at once. "What happened between you and your daughter? Is it true she got a perfect score just to win back your approval?" I listened to the barrage of questions, completely bewildered. Then, one of them held up a phone with a video playing. It was a news clip of Jasmine being interviewed. She looked directly into the camera and said, "Dad, I did what you wanted. Can you please forgive me now?" The reporters were swarming her, clearly sensing a huge story. I tried to be helpful. "You've got the wrong person," I told them. "I'm not her father." A sudden silence fell over the hallway as the reporters looked at each other, confused. "That can't be right," one of them muttered. "I checked the address. Must be a mistake," another one whispered. "Who wouldn't claim a daughter who got a perfect score?" "Yeah, and I heard her family's loaded. Her mom's a CEO. This guy doesn't look the part." Muttering amongst themselves, the reporters reluctantly dispersed. The moment I unlocked my phone, it exploded with notifications. They were all messages of congratulations, even from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. It's funny how cruel people can be. Someone you once considered the most precious thing in your life can become someone whose existence brings you neither joy nor sorrow. In fact, it was just annoying. I didn't reply to a single message. I just turned off my phone and went back to sleep. A few days later, Jasmine showed up at my door to personally deliver an invitation to her graduation party. "Dad, my party is in 3 days. You have to be there." I had no intention of going, but I didn't refuse outright. I just took the invitation from her hand. Jasmine seemed to let out a breath of relief. I did a quick mental calculation of my flight schedule. I have a flight that day. I probably won't be able to make it. "You can come late," she said quickly. "That's fine." I could see a flicker of hope in her eyes. Chloe, who had been quietly playing with her blocks in the corner, suddenly ran over and tugged on my shirt. "Daddy, you promised you'd come to my preschool graduation. You can't break a promise." Then she turned to Jasmine and announced, "You go to my graduation, so he doesn't have time to go to yours." Chloe's blunt statement made the color drain from Jasmine's face. "Chloe, why don't you go back to your blocks for a minute?" Chloe nodded and happily skipped back to her toys. Jasmine's face was pale, and she bit her lip. "Dad, I'm your daughter. You're going to skip my party for a stranger." I stated the facts calmly. "I already promised Chloe. Besides, if I showed up, wouldn't you be embarrassed?" When she was younger, her feelings toward me were a mix of simple dislike and dissatisfaction. But as a teenager, that had morphed into pure disgust. In her wealthy social circle, comparing whose father was more successful was a common pastime. And I, her stay-at-home dad with no career to speak of, was a source of constant humiliation for her. All her pent-up frustration would be unleashed on me. How did I end up with such a useless father? "You're so embarrassing." Jasmine looked flustered, stammering as she tried to find the words to explain, but nothing came out. Finally, she just blurted out, "But I know I was wrong now. Dad, please, just forgive me." "I'm not angry," I said. A flicker of joy crossed her face. But my next words made that light dim and finally extinguish completely. "Jasmine, biologically, I am your father. That is a fact that will never change. I'm not angry with you. I just want you to stop coming here and disturbing my life. You have plenty of father figures. You don't need me. I spent the first half of my life living for you. For the rest of it, I just want to live a quiet, peaceful life on my own." My expression was calm, my gaze steady and serious. Maybe my tone was too harsh. Jasmine crumpled to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Jasmine never liked to cry. She always wanted to be a strong, powerful woman like Candy, the kind of person who could fall down and no matter how much it hurt, would grit her teeth and refuse to shed a tear. And yet, this was the third time she had broken down in front of me. They say there's a special connection between a parent and child. In the past, seeing her upset would have hurt me more than it hurt her. But now I felt nothing at all. I handed her a tissue and waited quietly for her to finish. Jasmine was a proud person. I thought my repeated rejections would finally make her give up. But one day, Haley came to me with an amused smile. "Hey, so your daughter paid me a visit. Came to warn me off. What did she say?" "Oh, nothing much. Just that she and Candy are your real family, and that Chloe and I should stay away from you." My brow furrowed. She didn't. She's a funny kid. She came to threaten me, but by the end of it, she was the one crying. Haley watched my reaction carefully before adding tentatively, "She's your daughter, Sonny. Can't you just—" I stood up and walked away before she could finish. It was obvious Jasmine had gotten to her, turning her into an advocate on her behalf. The next day, Jasmine showed up again. "Dad, I've done a lot of thinking. I know I was selfish and reckless before, but I'm trying to change. I'm not here to bother you, I promise. I just want to see you sometimes. Please don't send me away," she pleaded, her eyes glistening with tears, a sight that would make anyone's heart soften. The dark circles under her eyes were proof she hadn't been sleeping well. I felt a familiar knot of irritation tighten in my chest. "Do whatever you want," I muttered. After that, Jasmine started coming over whenever she had free time. She rarely spoke, just sat quietly in a corner, drawing. Sometimes a colleague would drop by and see her. "Captain Davis, where'd you find this quiet little artist? She's incredibly talented." "I'm his daughter," Jasmine would answer sweetly. One day, she excitedly held up a portrait she had drawn of me. "Dad, this is for you." I glanced at it, said thanks, and set it on a nearby table. She didn't move. I followed her gaze to the wall, where one of Chloe's colorful drawings was taped up. I offered no explanation. My work schedule was erratic, and I never shared it with Jasmine. So there were often times she'd show up to an empty apartment, but she would just wait. I'd come home to find her squatting by my door, and she'd look up and force a smile. "Dad, you're back. It's late. You should go home." With Jasmine in my place every day, it was only a matter of time before Candy showed up. The window of her Maybach rolled down, and she held up a hand, phone to her ear, signaling for me to wait. It was a familiar scene, one that had played out countless times in the latter half of our marriage. Back then, I was always willing to wait, always willing to be patient and understanding. This time, just as I was about to head inside, Candy jogged over and grabbed my arm. "Don't go. I need to talk to you." Her face was slightly flushed, softening her usually sharp features. "Okay, I'm listening." She was quiet for a moment. "Jasmine really loves you. You must be able to see that." I didn't respond. "I've been thinking," she continued, "and considering everything, I think we should get remarried." Candy looked down, and the blush on her cheeks deepened. "I mean, we never really had any major problems, and with Jasmine." She looked up and saw the strange expression on my face. What is it? Didn't Holden propose?" It wasn't just a wild guess. She and Holden had been childhood sweethearts, engaged to be married long ago. If her parents hadn't had their accident, the powerful Holden family would never have called off the wedding. For families like theirs, profit always came before passion. True love was worthless when stacked against a business interest. A few years ago, Holden had finally taken over as the head of his family's corporation. Everyone assumed Candy would divorce me then. I assumed so too. I had even found the divorce papers she'd hidden in a drawer in her home office. But she never brought it up. I figured it was out of some lingering gratitude for how I had helped her through the darkest time in her life. Not long after our divorce was finalized, her friends started their snide remarks. "Holden is going to propose to Candy any day now. They were always meant to be together." A flicker of panic crossed Candy's eyes. I turned him down. "Why?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "Holden and I are ancient history. It's not what you think. If you're only asking me to remarry for Jasmine's sake," I said, "I think Holden would be a much better fit. After all, she adores him." Candy's body seemed to stiffen, her posture losing its usual confidence. "No, it's not. Even a famously decisive CEO was at a loss for words. "Candy, don't be so selfish. I was the one who stood by her during the darkest time of her life. Her parents had died in that plane crash. The Holden family had broken the engagement, and her relatives had forced her off the company's board of directors. The series of devastating blows sent the Golden Girl, who had never known hardship, into a deep depression. I stayed by her side through all, finding her therapist, talking her through it, taking care of her. I slowly helped her clear away the darkness. And like in every cliché story of salvation, Candy found herself again, and then she and I got married and started a family. But so often, I felt like I was just a tool, something to be used, and then cast aside when no longer needed. Perhaps her feelings for me were always more gratitude than love. That would explain why she never did anything to discourage Holden. I have no desire to be a husband or a father again, and I certainly don't want to be anyone's tool. I never treated you like a tool. And at that, I suddenly laughed. The things people reveal unconsciously are always the most painful. All those years of neglect and emotional distance couldn't be erased by a simple denial. Whether you did or not doesn't matter anymore. The only thing that matters to me now is living a quiet life, free of drama. I had no desire to rehash all the problems in our marriage, to pick at the scabs of a relationship that was already full of holes. I don't love Holden, she started. I cut her off. Some things, if they weren't said back then, don't need to be said now. You can't live in the past forever. In time, you'll both get used to the new reality. And please, tell Jasmine to stop coming here. All I want is some peace and quiet. Candy bit her lower lip, tilting her head back to quickly wipe a tear from the corner of her eye. Her pride wouldn't allow her to show any more weakness. Fine, she said. She walked to her car, pausing for just a second before pulling the door open. The car disappeared into the night, its roaring engine fading until only silence remained. The next day, Jasmine showed up with red, swollen eyes. After a long silence, she spoke. Dad, I'm going to be studying abroad. Okay, I don't want to go. I didn't say anything. Jasmine, I have to get ready for work. Anything taken to an extreme will eventually cause harm. Caring too much only ends up hurting you. When you finally learn to let things go, you realize none of it was as important as you thought.